Business Focus with Kudzie, Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.
And 22 minutes before 8 a.m. is our time, Business Focus, as always with Kudzie, Sharara. We get to discuss a lot of what's happening in the world of business, but thinking of buying or selling your property, then Just a Property will guide your home. Our expert team has got the tools and experience to make property sales effortless and rewarding for first-time buyers or seasoned sellers. From agro and residential stands, modern apartments to spacious family homes, Just a Property has the perfect property for you. Why wait? Get in touch with Just Property today on 0773 364 614. 0773 364 614. Just a Property, creating wealth through property. Business Focus, right here on Capital. Good morning to you, Kudzie. How are you today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's start with what you think is an economic event worth noting today.
Thank you, Tinashe. I think today we can look at the fourth quarter, 2024 fourth quarter report that was released by ZIDA yesterday. So ZIDA is responsible for it's the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agency. So for those projects that Zimbabweans, entrepreneurs, institutions, individuals want to do, ZIDA is there to license those investments. ZIDA is also there to develop and promote those investments. And every quarter they release a report detailing the new investments that they would have licensed, the projected investment amounts from those investments, as well as the sectors in which investors are willing to invest, as well as the provinces in which these investments are targeted. And I think this particular report is good. It's a good economic indicator for those who want to see where the economy is going and where the likely growth is going to come from. Obviously, not all licenses that are issued will result in actual projects being started in Zimbabwe. But all the same, I think the report is a good indicator of where investments are likely to go. So according to this fourth quarter, 2024 fourth quarter report, ZIDA issued out licenses worth about 4.5 billion in terms of projected investment. So how does this work? It's Tinashe coming in and saying, okay, I want a license to open a mine in Zimbabwe. And ZIDA will ask Tinashe to say, okay, you want to open a mine. How much do you expect to invest? And then Tinashe will say, I think I will invest about $60 million. And that's how they calculate this 4.5 billion. So of the 200 licenses they issued in the fourth quarter, they were worth about $4.5 billion, roughly almost like $4.6 billion. And then the sector where most of the investors were targeting was actually, interestingly, for the first time, I think, the real estate sector. About $2 billion worth of investments are targeted for the real estate sector. And I think, despite this being an indicator of where investors are putting their money, I think we are also seeing it on the ground, where we are seeing from an industrial point of view, we are seeing new industries that are coming up. And then you look at from a residential point of view, again, you continue to see these investments that are coming up. We are seeing houses with bigger spaces, like in the areas like Greendale, Avondale, and Waterfalls and the like, where there's just one house on a 4,000 square meter stand. And you're seeing people coming in to repurpose these developments, put up cluster houses, put up flats and stuff like that. So a lot of money is going towards the real estate sector. I think there's some kind of a boom in that sector. I think we can agree on that one. So that's the sector where most investors are putting their money. And then by province, Marshall and Central is where most investors are targeting in terms of value, because about $2.1 billion worth of these investments are targeted in Marshall and Central. However, when you look at it by the number of investors to say which province most investors are targeting. You see Harare continues to lead on that front. About out of the 200 licenses that were issued, 84 of those are targeted for investments in Harare, followed by Midlands, where 33 are targeted into that particular province. Then followed by so it's Harare, Midlands, Mashonaland Central, and then Mashonaland West. This is where investors are looking at putting their investments in. And then in terms of sector, most of these investors are targeting the mining sector. 91 licenses. So out of the 200, 91 are targeted for the mining sector, followed by manufacturing, 47, and then services, and then construction also coming through there. I think it's something that can open our eyes to say, okay, globally, where are most people investing? We are in the digital era and stuff like that. So you'll be interested, okay, is Zimbabwe following a similar trend where investors are looking at the services sector, they are looking at the digital sector, but from what I'm seeing here, there isn't much going into those sectors. ICT, for example, there's only one investment that is targeted for the ICT sector. And then there's only about 18 for services, which is reasonable, 18 going into the services industry. So that's the report coming from ZIDA Tinashe. I think it gives us an indication of where there is potential and where other investors are seeing opportunity to go into. And it seems the mining sector, Harare, and the manufacturing sector are getting the bulk of the investment.
All right. Talking about that, Kudzie, we've got a question that's coming in from Bababa Handa. How does Zimbabwe rank in investment attractiveness globally and ease and cost of doing business? I also think ZIDA should start considering provincial special economic zones to move domestic and foreign investment capital away from Harare.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. That has been the last suggestion there. And then in terms of ranking, unfortunately, I think in 2019, the World Bank stopped doing the ranking of the ease and cost of doing business. They stopped doing that ranking. I'm not sure if there's any other institution that has started doing that, but the World Bank stopped. And at that time, Zimbabwe actually had, led by the OPC, they were making sure that every now and again they were working on improving the ease of doing business as well as the cost of doing business. They were working flat out to do that. And we were actually improving in terms of our rankings. And then suddenly, when the World Bank stopped doing the ranking, I think we also stopped. Although institutions like ZIDA, for example, is making it very easy for investors to register, to get a license. So with ZIDA, for example, you can actually do all the processes online and actually get your license issued there for an online portal. And they are actually telling us that, if I'm not mistaken, more than 90% of these licenses that we were talking about, they were done online. So wherever you are in the world, you can actually go and get your business license on that online portal. I think it improves the ease of doing business. Than coming here, enda ku office kenda kune iyo, wozoya mangwana wenda kune iyo, something like that. It's just not on. So I think it's, I'm not sure how many days it's now taking, but the last time they'd improved even in terms of the number of days it takes for you to get a license. So if the guys from ZIDA are listening, maybe they can tell us how many days it's now taking to get a license. I think it had been reduced to less than 10 days for you to get your license issued. So these are some of the things that we need to improve them. But to answer the question, in terms of ranking, we no longer have that World Bank ranking.
All right, Kudzie, thank you so much. Hopefully, Baba Hunter, you've been answered on that one. 13 minutes before 8 a.m. is our time. It's Business Focus with Kudzie Sharara. So, Kudzie, let's look at the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update for yesterday and, of course, other markets.
Thank you, Tinashe. So, yeah, the ZSE continues to come off, albeit slightly. So, the Osha index down by a marginal 0.84%. The top 10 index also coming off by a marginal 0.29%. And the counters that dragged the market lower, Citco down by 14.95%. I'm not sure what investors are not happy about there. Maybe the late coming off the rains. Maybe investors believe Citco didn't play as much seed maize as they should because the counter continues to come off and it's already 31.3% down since the beginning of the year. Tanganda also coming off 14.77% down. It's one of the top losers so far in the year, down by a massive 37.8%. And we know Tanganda is currently involved in planning a transaction to list some of its shares on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, as well as raise $8 million. And then Unifreight also down by 14.6%. That's Unifreight there. I think they also issued a cautionary statement saying that they are involved in a negotiation for a transaction that they are working on. So that's another counter that is in the negative territory. Dairyboard also coming off by 12.83%. VAT easing by 8.54%. On the upside, there were only 4 companies that were positive. Hippo Valley, despite announcing that it is set to embark on a 3-phase retrenchment drive, was however positive with a 6.58% gain yesterday. South Africa also up by 1.02%. GB Holdings putting on 0.29%, and then CBZ up by 0.12%. And CBZ is in the paper today announcing to shareholders that the cautionary statement that they've been issuing since November last year, where they were planning to acquire a significant stake, which I understand is in First Mutual Life. They have since stopped that because the Competition and Tariff Commission decision, so the Competition and Tariff Commission had put or set various conditions for approval of the transaction, and CBZ, having considered the nature of the conditions that were set by the Competition and Tariff Commission, the directors of the company have decided that the company will no longer proceed with the transaction. So, which I understand is the First Mutual transaction. CBZ is saying, look, the conditions that were set by the Competition and Tariff Commission are too onerous, and we will not be following through with that particular transaction. So, it's not going to happen, that transaction between CBZ and First Mutual Life. So that's what was happening on the market.
All right, we've got a couple of questions coming through, Kudzie, here with just about 10 minutes to go. This one says, what does the Donald Trump administration mean to the U.S. economy and, of course, our economy?
Look, I haven't looked much in terms of some of the things that Trump did. However, there are a few that have got an impact on Zimbabwe. So Trump has always been saying, make America great. And if you look at some of the orders that he gave yesterday, these are orders to stop American money from being used to help other countries. In short, in simple terms, that's what he did, to say, okay, in terms of the World Health Organization, he withdrew the United States from the World Health Organization. And I understand that the United States is the biggest funder of the World Health Organization. So if there was any benefit, for example, countries like Zimbabwe were getting from the World Health Organization, it means that whatever funding, whatever help that we were getting, maybe drugs and whatever that was coming via the World Health Organization, it means it's going to be significantly reduced. Why? Because the biggest funder of that organization has withdrawn from that fund. Unless other countries step up, other developed countries such as the likes of China and other European countries step up to fill the gap in terms of funding that will be left by the withdrawal of the United States. I think whatever benefit we were getting from that organization is going to be significantly reduced. And I know globally every country also benefits in terms of research, in terms of all sorts of things that the World Health Organization, which might not be direct funding to Zimbabwe, but in terms of the expertise, the advice and stuff like that, that it's going to be affected because of what Donald Trump has done. in his quest to make America great and put America first. So that's number one in terms of our health situation. If we're getting any medical drugs, funding and stuff like that, it's going to be affected unless other countries step up. And then he also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, withdrew the United States from the Paris Agreement. But it might not be the Paris Agreement per se, just in case I make a mistake, but it has got to do with the issues of funding climate change-related issues. So it's to do with climate change, sustainability. So again, it will have, the United States, I think, is the second biggest emitter of that damages the climate change. And I think the America withdrawing from that, it means whatever funding that we were expecting America to contribute, the United States to contribute. Remember that over the years, if you go to COP29, which has to do with climate change, you find that developed world countries have been promising to inject more than 100 billion to make sure that we minimize or reduce the impact on climate. And the United States being one of the biggest economies, I think the world was expecting more money or more funding to come from the United States. But with what Trump has done, again, it's going to affect the amount of money that is targeted to fund climate-related challenges. So again, I think that for me, that those two big issues, health and climate change, are going to be significantly affected by the decisions that Donald Trump is making.
All right, Kudzie, before I pick up our last question, let's get into our personal finance segment quickly.
Thank you, Tinash. So I think for personal finance, I wanted to touch on another area that also a lot of people or we tend to ignore. And I think in terms of what we call passive income, we are all working, we actively go to work, we actively earn income. But what about passive income? Don't we require passive income? And what is it that we call passive income? So that's what I wanted to talk about, just to give suggestions of what are known as, or what is called passive income. So the first one is that of investing in, for example, in the stock market. When you're investing in the stock market, especially if you invest in what we call dividend-paying companies, you invest in a company that pays a dividend. You are basically investing in what we call passive income. Or you can also invest in what we known as real estate investment trust, like in short, REITs, where you invest, partially invest in a property, and at the end of the period, every quarter, the property, the net rental that is generated by that property, 80% of that net rental is distributed to those who have bought the units of that particular rate. So again, that is another form of passive income, or maybe in form of a definition of passive income. This is where, in simple terms, where you invest your money elsewhere and you start generating some income from that money. So most of the work that you do it when you decide to invest. So invest in real estate investment trust, you invest in property, for example, an investment property, which is a property that you invest in so that you earn some rental income. So those kind of, or invest or you put your money in a savings account, again, or a high yielding bond. If you put your money in those investments, that's and you start earning either interest, either rental income, or either dividend. That is known as that's passive income. And I think everybody, you need to earn some passive income to supplement your income. So that's on the personal finance front. Look for something that is that gives you a passive income to help supplement or complement your active income.
All right, Kudzie, thank you so much for that. There's a question here that says, of the ZIDA licensed businesses, what ratio of those started operations?
Yeah, so ZIDA hasn't given us that in terms of how many have started. But what they also do is they in terms of another metric that they take is that of license renewal. And when they go and ask, say, okay, you need to renew your license, they then ask that particular investor to say, now that you are renewing your license, how much have you invested so far? And according to this report, in the fourth quarter of last year, the companies that had renewed their licenses were 50. And of those companies, they've actually invested. This is now money that is actually coming in. It's no longer projected, but what is actually coming. And for this particular quarter, it was 60 million that had come in during that particular quarter. And compared to the previous quarter, I think the previous quarter, it was about 50 million that had come in the previous quarter. So that's another metric that they use. But in terms of whether a company has started or not, they haven't shared that.
All right, Kudzie, thank you so much for Business Focus for today. We will do this again tomorrow. Okay, just quickly one, Kudzie, a quick one. Hansi, please ask Kudzie about gold coins. Happy.
Gold coins, vakatenga gold coins kare vachinawo kana kuti vanogona kumatengesa, asi hakuchatengeswe mamwe gold coins zvakare. And vakamatenga vakabenefita zvikuru, because vakamatenga ari worth $1,823 pekutanga. Now are worth close to 3,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe kushaya dumari but ndo zvataifana kuita.
Yeah. But Kudzie, thank you so much for Business Focus. We appreciate. We'll discuss more business tomorrow.
Thank you, Tinash. Thank you, bye.
Business Focus with Kudzie Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.